If a power of attorney and healthcare directive conflict, which one prevails? Let's talk about what both of those are. A healthcare directive is sometimes called a living will. It is a legal document recognized under state law that allows a person to designate someone else to make medical and healthcare decisions for them. So for example, if a person is unconscious or affected so much by the drugs in a hospital that they're not able to make decisions for themselves, the person they've designated in their healthcare directive or living will can make those decisions for them. So typically a healthcare directive is put on file with a hospital. For example, when I went and had surgery, the hospital asked me before I went in for the procedure, do you have a healthcare directive on file? And if not, would you like to get one? And some hospitals even have a little form where you can fill out who's in charge of any medical decisions while you're under if decisions need to be made and you can't provide guidance to the doctors. What might those decisions be? For example, let's say a doctor gets into an operation and finds a spot of cancer and believes it should be removed, but removing it would also have some risks. The doctor doesn't want to make a decision herself. She would like to consult with the patient, but the patient is in surgery. The patient can't come in. If the patient has designated someone to make those healthcare decisions in a healthcare directive or living will, the doctor can explain the risk to the agent in the healthcare directive, and the agent can make the final decision. Okay, so what is a power of attorney? A power of attorney is very similar. It's where one person designates someone else, you could call them an agent or an attorney in fact, and that person can make decisions for someone if they can't. So for example, a power of attorney might be used if you are traveling to another country and you need to designate somebody who can sign legal documents in your country while you're gone. Say, for example, you have a real estate sale coming up or a closing, and the closing is going to happen while you are traveling outside of the United States. Let's say you're in Europe. You are not going to be present in the United States for that real estate closing, so you can't sign the documents. What can you do? You can have a power of attorney to designate a spouse or a real estate agent or an attorney or a friend to sign those real estate documents for you. That's the purpose of a power of attorney. So the question here is, what happens if a power of attorney conflicts with a healthcare directive or living will? First off, usually that doesn't happen. And here's why. The power of attorney is for legal and business decisions. The healthcare directive is for medical and healthcare decisions. By the way, sometimes a healthcare directive, or sometimes called living will, is called a healthcare power of attorney or medical power of attorney or power of attorney for healthcare. But let's say hypothetically, somebody has signed a healthcare directive that appoints one person to make decisions for their medical decisions, and they also sign a power of attorney which covers that same decision. Maybe it says medical decisions, or maybe it says financial decisions, and the decision that needs to be made has a financial component and a medical component. So that is the question we have here. How do we resolve the fact if they conflict? So first off, it's a mess. It's not real clear, but usually what would happen is the person who was appointed most recently would have the authority to make that decision. But I'll acknowledge that if the older document did not expire and that person wasn't replaced by the new document, we admittedly have two people authorized to make the decision. That means they can both make the decision without consulting the other. So often hospitals, as a practical matter, will simply rely on the decision made by whoever they're talking to. They may not even know there's another person out there to make the decision. Now, what happens, though, if both, we'll call them agents, who have been empowered with making the decision, tell the doctor to do the opposite? What happens then? Well, that is a very difficult decision for the doctor. If the doctor asked me what to do, I would say you are in a legal quandary and you're going to have to make the best decision you can because you don't have clarity regarding what the patient wants. Now you might say, but Aaron, didn't you just say that the most recent power of attorney or document prevails? I did, but in a scenario where a doctor is being told two conflicting decisions or choices about a decision, and both of those people were lawfully appointed to make the decision by the patient who is unconscious or unable to make the decision, I believe legally the doctor does not have clear direction regarding the patient's intent, and thus either needs to get a court to make that decision or the doctor needs to make the decision herself. So this is messy, and if you find yourself in this position, I'd recommend contacting an attorney. I've actually seen one similar scenario like this, and ultimately there was effort to get a court to make a decision. A lot of times courts have a process where they have a judge who is on call to make emergency decisions. And you file papers with the court for an emergency action. Sometimes it's called an emergency TRO, or temporary restraining order, where one party is trying to restrain another party from taking action contrary to what they want. So if you're in this position, you can try to negotiate with the doctor or whoever's making that decision. If you're not getting your will, then you may need to immediately seek an emergency TRO from a court. If you're interested in other educational content like this, feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're trying to produce regular educational content so that business owners can be empowered to have a more successful business and more successful life. I'm Aaron Hall. If you'd like to stay in touch, go to aaronhall.com/free, and we will put you on a list so you can receive some free resources, including videos to help the success of your company.